Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the third episode of the Oracle Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Justice Miranda, better known as the Oracle. And today, I'm joined by new head coach at Canyon View High School. Just a little bit about this man. Spent the last 7 seasons at Nevada Powerhouse, Democracy Prep, building that program up. Really good pedigree, really good overall resume there. Won back-to-back state championships, was the NIAA Coach of the Year in back-to-back seasons as well. Went to 5 consecutive Final Fours. Again, just a very well accomplished coach, and obviously very well respected in the Nevada community, now in the Valley at Canyon View. Please welcome in Cory Duke, Coach. Appreciate you jumping on.
Man, it's an honor to be here, man. You do an unbelievable job, and just excited to be on here with you. Really appreciate
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, and thank you again for joining. I guess we can kind of just jump into the obvious one that I've wanted to ask you. After 7 years at Democracy Prep, obviously winning those 2 state championships, what made Canyon View worth leaving for? Why the Jaguars and why Arizona for your next stop?
You know, when I at first, I'll be honest with you. I was happy where I was. It was, Democracy Prep was an unbelievable place. They gave me a great opportunity to start my career really off the right way in a great program with a lot of great players, great kids, great families, and I owe a lot to Democracy Prep. But I think over time, when you're somewhere a really long time, I think sometimes you kind of can feel it that maybe it's time for a new challenge, that it's time for a different opportunity. When I heard about the Canyon View job opening up, I heard a lot about the potential of what it could be. You know, they've been winning in a lot of sports, and the coach before me did a good job. They've had really good coaches and good teams. But I saw this as a gold mine, man. I really, with the facilities that we have, great leadership that we have, and when you pull up into the parking lot, it's a special place. When you just look at one of the most beautiful schools probably in America, to be honest with you, high schools, and for sure in the Valley. And so, you know, when all of those factors together, and obviously coming down for the interview, when I pulled in, it was a special place. It's a cliche thing to say, but the minute I stepped on campus, the way people treated me, the way that they handled the interview, it was so professional and well done. And they really wanted to know about you as a person. It wasn't just basketball. Canyon View is a great community of the school itself and the people around it, but the school has a special culture that I just wish everybody could be a part of. It's really special. You know, Everybody says it that comes to Canyon View. They get there and there's just a feeling they get, and the way the people act and the way they treat them, and just the family atmosphere at Canyon View is second to none. And that's not to take anything away from anywhere else, but it really is a special atmosphere. And it's a great place to go to work every day. And I've enjoyed every second of being there. It was an opportunity for a new challenge. I thought that we had really kind of reached, our potential. And of course, I think we could have done even more things, but sometimes in life, and I do believe this was something that I prayed about a lot, and I felt like that it was time to go. And it was heartbreaking. Uh, Great players, great kids, like I said. That's the hardest thing to do as a coach when blood, sweat, and tears with kids for a long time. You coach kids for a long time. You pour into young men for a long time, and you know, without those guys, I wouldn't be here. I always say it's a player's game. It's a player's game, and yes, as a coach, you foster their talent. You put them in good positions to succeed. But at the end of the day, players have to make plays, and they've got to do special things on the court for a coach to get where he wants to get. And it's all about them. And I give them all the praise on that. But yeah, just a new challenge and a new opportunity with a new group of guys and a new school, and to see what we can do in probably one of the best high school basketball cities in America. I would say right now, it's top of the heap, and I think it's getting right up there with California.
Yeah, and you guys are in a tough region. We'll talk about that a little bit later in this podcast. And then yeah, Canyon View in general, just it's gonna be yeah, it's just loaded game after loaded game. The talent here is fantastic. And I gotta be honest, when I heard that you were becoming the new head coach at Canyon View, I was pretty amped because I'm like, yes, we got another high pedigree coach rolling into the state, and I knew immediately, not like Canyon View wasn't already on the map, but I already knew, you know, with you coming in, could do something special there. I guess jumping back to democracy prep, obviously got your start there, at least on a bigger scale. Kind of just curious, what was your path into coaching, and how did you what were you doing before you got to democracy prep? How'd you get to that level?
Yeah, so I did, I was a head coach prior to that. Like you said, democracy prep was kind of, the first big job, I guess you could say that I had. Democracy prep did have quite a bit of success before I got there at the lower levels, and we were just able to kind of take it to another level. But at the genesis of this is, I've always known I was going to be a coach. That's what I've always wanted to do. I played at the high school and collegiate level. I played baseball in college, and I played a couple years of basketball as well, but played 4 years of baseball. But basketball was always in my heart. I studied it. It was something that, I put a ton of time into in college. And after my senior year of high school, of college at Central Baptist College, I came on staff as a graduate assistant. That was my first coaching job. And about midway through the year, there was an opportunity in Texarkana, Texas. Texarkana, Arkansas, but it was on the Texas side. It's they call it the Arklatex. It's Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana connected. And that was my first head coaching job, and it was, kind of trial by fire, man. It was I was coming into a situation where there was good teams in the past, but they hadn't won in a while, and it was just kind of the beginning of learning how to build a team, and maybe not have the greatest talent, but find ways to win. And I think those early years there really taught me a lot about, hey, you're not going to always have the best players. What can I do to impact the game and the outcome in different ways? And I spent 2 great years there. We went to the round of 16 and, made a little bit of a run, and it was a great time. And then a job had opened up called Exeter High School. One of one of the most losing programs in the history of Missouri. I think at one time they had lost over 80 games in a row. And I'm from Missouri. I'm from Southwest Missouri. And I wanted to get closer to family. When that job opened up, look, it was one of those jobs people tell you don't take. I think I had every mentor of mine said, "Don't take the job. It's a death sentence as a coach. It's going to be really tough to bounce back if you can't make something happen." And I trusted in God, and I believed in Him, and I believed that I had enough energy where I didn't have maybe the experience as other guys. I had enough energy, and I was going to work endlessly. And we took that job over, and we were able to basically quadruple their win total. And in over 2 years, we doubled. We won a lot of games for them at that place. And so again, Trinity was like the first job of flipping something around and becoming a winning culture. And so then Exeter was even tougher, but it taught me, how to do that and how to start the process of that. And like everything is a process. And it was difficult. Trust me. It was a difficult time. I spent my first 4 years as a head coach. I was losing a lot, and it was tough. And sometimes you feel like you're not going to ever come out of it. Am I going to get another job? Is this opportunity going to come? And I ended up in the summer. So I coached at Exeter for 2 years. And then a great friend of mine, his name's Casey Cook. He played at UC Santa Barbara, a real close friend of mine, played overseas for almost a decade. And he reached out to me, he said, "Why don't you come out to Vegas and we're going to train some pros, and, just spend the summer league out here with me." And I said, "All right, let me give it a go." So I went out there. I spent the summer league with him, training guys, an NBA guy or two, and then of course some overseas guys and some Division One players. And after that couple weeks, I felt like, I felt like we were supposed to move to Vegas. And my wife is from Arkansas. She was country girl, Southern girl, used to more of a smaller town environment. And when I got home, again, I'll say this, like, in this business, you have to have an amazing spouse. You have to have your wife, significant other has to be your rock, and they've got to be the superstar of the show because they've got to be willing to move. They've got to be willing to get up and go on a whim when you're young and you're trying to build your coaching career up. And I remember I got home and, she looked at, I said, honey, I think we're supposed to move to Vegas. She said, when are we leaving? And so we got out, or we moved out and we went to Vegas with nothing, knew nobody, didn't know a soul besides Casey in Vegas, and came out here and started to connect and meet some coaches and build some relationships. And, got the opportunity at, my first opportunity actually as a head coach was at Clark High School. I was there for 1 year. We had a good year. And then the democracy job opened. And I had some, great people help me with that opportunity. Guys like, Brian Sitter, who's the head, runs Vegas Elite, that had tipped me off about the job and actually, made a couple calls and said, hey man, this is a great opportunity. You should look into it. And so I jumped on that and, hit the ground running in Vegas. And so that's kind of the journey, and it was the greatest decision I ever made was coming to Vegas. And then obviously coaching at Democracy Prep, was another just unbelievable decision that, if I didn't have people around me that were supporting me and believed in me, then I wouldn't have had that opportunity.
That's awesome. The power of connections, right? And knowing people. And yeah, great to see. Obviously, it's kind of just like the typical journey of bumbling and stumbling your way, but sounds, I mean, yeah, did a fantastic job at Democracy Prep and glad it worked out for you. And now you're here at Canyon View. When you were at Democracy Prep, mentioned this, won two state titles. You did it at two different levels. So you won it at the 2A division and the 3A as well. What do you think separates a good high school program from a championship one, given your time coaching the past 7 years?
Yeah, I would say that the consistency, you know, I coach every day like I'm fighting for my job. And I want my players every day not to be scared to lose their position, but to have a fire in them every day. This is an amazing opportunity we have to play this game, coach this game. This game has given me everything. I know that, and the consistency and the toughness to be able to get through tough times, and to keep coaching and keep playing when things are really difficult, when your back's against the wall. Every championship run you're going to go on, there's going to be a lot of adversity. And the championship teams and coaches and programs can deal with that adversity and not get too high and not get too low. It's never as good as it seems and it's never as bad as it seems. And I think if you can keep that mindset of I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go to work every day, the sun's going to shine in the morning. And in this business, there's a lot of tough nights, a lot of long nights. And I think the guys that are consistent, the teams that are consistent, and that the messaging is clear, right? I think coaches can get so enamored with so many different things. Keep it simple, and the message has got to be strong, and it's got to be united, and it's got to be every day, and it's got to be in the toughest days, it's got to be in the best days, and you have to stay connected with your guys. Like you said, the power of connection, it's powerful, right? Again, a cliche thing, but relationships, connection, and culture are everything. There's a lot of great players out there. There's a lot of really good teams. The great teams are connected and have a belief, and almost just a belief, you know, it's almost not even a real belief. Sometimes you believe almost too much. You know what I mean? Like you can do anything, and you have to have that to be great. You have to sometimes have a belief that nobody else can see, but only you and your guys. And it really is you against the world when you're trying to win a championship, and especially when you've won one. I think that's the toughest thing. I'll be honest, is trying to do it again. That's the toughest thing because now the bullseye's on your back, and now you have to go out every night and you're getting everybody's best shot. But yeah, consistency and just belief, man. It goes a long way.
Yeah, and I like the idea of, coaching like it's the last day of your life or, like your life depends on it, even whether it's coaching or playing. I think that's a good mindset. You kind of talked about culture a little bit too. Switching gears, just going back to Nevada, coming over from Nevada, is kind of just curious, is there anything in the high school basketball community that's different here in Arizona for better or worse, whether it be, talent, style of play, culture? Kind of just curious to hear your thoughts there.
Well, I'll be honest. Like I think that both places have great culture in that way. And I mean, I'm not just saying a politically correct answer, but I look. I mean, like Grant Rice at Bishop Gorman High School, has been a mentor of mine as well. And um, I didn't know a soul in Vegas, and when I reached out to him, he immediately responded. He was always there for me, was always open to helping me and helping build my career and help mentoring me in this business. So and I felt a lot of the same thing here. Now, look, I'm the new guy coming in, right? And so I'm a competitor to these guys, and they want to beat us, and we want to beat them. But everybody's been really welcoming, and you know, Coach Stansberry, at Mesa, is a friend of mine, great guy. There's a lot of great coaches, and there's a great culture here. And look, it's a fight every single night in this area. I think that's a little bit of the difference is, there might be 15 to 20 teams that have a chance to make a run in one form or, fashion, and it's just so deep with really good coaches and really good players. That's the thing that I've noticed more than anything is you can just name a school and there's a really good ball coach there, and I think I love that. I think that's an amazing thing because Eric, we got to do this together. At the end of the day, we're competing, and that's big. But for Arizona basketball to continue to ascend to the level that it's capable of, we've got to compete, but we've got to lift each other up, and we've got to build each other up. And look, we're going to compete, and it's going to be nasty at times, but at the end of the day, we have each other's back. It's a coaching fraternity, and nobody understands coaches like coaches, and so I would say it's been great so far. Guys have been really welcoming and helpful, and I had the same thing in Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, yeah, it's just you can name really like two or three teams from every region from 4A to 6A that are really good that can be competitive. So the
Yeah,
level of parity, I think, in recent years, at least, in the actual conference tournaments has been really good. You're not consistently getting the same winners every year in the conference tournaments. The Open, a little bit of a different story. We'll see if that can change this year.
yeah,
Um, Kind of just transitioning to your guys' summer play because this is your first time coaching the guys and getting some real action. Just a few things I wanted to mention. When I was watching you guys over the summer for the first time, particularly at Section 7, I I walked over because I was just bouncing around all over the place, and I can immediately tell this is a different team on the court compared to last season, just in terms of hustle, overall play, and then even just seeing you on the sideline, the energy, the passion you brought. I could see how that's contagious to the players. And then even just looking at some of your performances at Section 7 and Nevada Live at Section 7, you beat a Desert Pines team that was top 10 in Nevada last year. You were neck and neck for like, what, 65 to 70% of the game against Redondo Union. And they're arguably one of the best teams in California. It could be like a top 5, top 10 team. And then at Nevada Live, barely lost to a Village Christian team that has Will Conroy Jr., who's the number one ranked player at least in the SoCal region for the class of 2029. Might even be number one in the state. And then obviously you picked up some wins. You also picked up a win against Lincoln, California at Section 7, beat Orem. might be another team that I forgot there. Played Loyola tough as well. But I guess just all that, combined, being with the team for less than 2 months and doing all that, I guess, how did you get the guys to compete at that level in that short of a window and get them to buy in? What was that process like?
Well, that's a non-negotiable. And I've always said wherever I go, we'll play hard. But it's more than that. You have to have guys receptive to the messaging, and you have to have guys that are hungry and are ready for a change and ready for something bigger than they've had. And I'll say, man, when I got here, these kids were wide-eyed and ready to go. They were ready for the moment and the opportunity. And I think sometimes it's better just when you don't have a lot of time and you keep it really simple and you focus on really the intangible parts of the game that affect wins and losses more than you may even realize. And we're going to get into you defensively. We're going to be hit to help, high hand closeouts, hard stunts, putting a body on somebody on every block out, pushing the pace offensively, playing off two, getting downhill, space in the floor, and just a relentless effort and a relentless pace that I think, and we're able to do because we're not a huge team physically. And that hurts us in areas with the rim protection, but I think it helps us in a lot of areas too because we're able to get out and go, and we can at five guys, we can get it off the glass, and about anybody in our starting lineup or top eight can get it off the glass and go and make a play. And so we're really dynamic. And it's a dynamic group. And I think we've got guys that are a little bit under the radar that are about to explode onto the scene. Really talented group, I think some of these guys also, it's a product of them coming into their own, and getting a little bit older, a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, and a little hungrier. I think that's a big part of it is, hey man, we've got an opportunity. And when these guys start getting older in their careers, they start realizing, man, I've got about 30 games left. I don't have a lot of games left here to make something happen and put my imprint and my stamp at a great school like Canyon View that's been successful. And I mean, you look at our girls program, which Coach Des does over there. I mean, it's unbelievable. She's one of the best coaches on the West Coast and anywhere. You look at all of our football programs, our volleyball programs. It's softball. You go up and down, the line, and you see how great these programs are. And these guys are hungry to get their name in lights, to get their opportunity. And so, but connection and loving these guys and building relationships with them, finding out things about them, and just learning about them. And I always want to know my players. I want to know who their favorite players are. I want to know who they are just outside of the game and what they can do for me, because this is I want to be a servant leader to these young men. I want to serve them. I don't want them to serve me. I want to serve them. I want to build them up and just help bring the greatest out of them that I can.
Yeah, and I like the comment on, yeah, you don't want them to just, do it for you if there's no, like mutual respect between both parties. Obviously, it's difficult to coach and get to your players if, you know, it's only just a one-way street. So I like that comment there. You brought up something interesting about the size of your team that I was actually going to ask about. Obviously, a very guard-heavy lineup. If I don't know how much college basketball you watch, but the
Yeah.
best comparison I can give is like a Florida Atlantic, the year they made the Final Four, where they were just, four guards in the court, basically, really entertaining team to watch. That's kind of what I thought when I watched you guys. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think your tallest player is PJ Nolan, who's 6'4". So yeah, really guard heavy, not a ton of size. Again, that makes you very dangerous offensively at times on defense. If you're going up against teams that are bigger, could be a little bit more of a struggle. You kind of mentioned either way, you kind of just attack and go after teams. I guess was just kind of curious on what your philosophy is on working around that, or if you just lean into it.
Well, so honestly, the biggest guy that I've ever coached, I think, was actually during COVID. His name's Antonio Chol. He's was at University of New Mexico, and he's at Santa Barbara now. He's one of the top JUCO transfers in America a couple years ago, and now he might end up being in the NBA. but he didn't play. He was a COVID kid, so we played, but it wasn't it didn't count. We would have to go places, and they had a local league. But other than that, I think 6'5" is the biggest guy I've coached through all these years, and you know I've just had to adapt, and that's all I've ever had. So that's how I've adapted to that style. And there are some key things that I think when you're a small team, and I don't want to give away too much here, but I mean it is what it is. It's obvious. You've got to be really, everybody talks about, guarding bigs, as far as like actually guarding them in the post, but that starts with perimeter pressure. And it starts with altering the entries and making the entries really difficult, right? So our thing is we're going to get into you, we're going to front the post, and we're going to get into the basketball. We're going to have backside help, and we're just going to sandwich that big. And if you're going to make that pass and that entry look, it's going to be perfect. But we're going to be high hands. We're going to mirror the basketball. And so we're going to really get into it. And so it makes almost that entry impossible at times, right? And you have to stay on your P's and Q's with that. But there are a lot of things you've got to do. You've got to be locked in on backside help and making sure that everyone is loaded to the ball and everyone is connected to the ball. And so those are some of the tactical things. And then it just comes down to, look, we're small. We've got to be nastier and tougher than you, right? We have to be the first. We always talk about first to the floor. Something I talk about it, they talk about 50-50 balls. We call them 100-0, right? You have to get that ball. We're too small. We have to get that loose ball. We have to win that 50-50 battle, right? We have to try to keep the rebounding battle close, single digits. If, it's going to be hard to win it every night, but we keep it in single digits, we've got a chance. We keep our turnovers below 10, 12 to 10. We're going to be right there. Right. And so it's all of those little things when you're a small team that you have to do, in order to win games and then win big games. And you got to prepare. It's preparation. You've got to live. We spend a lot of nights with the staff in the office, right, trying to figure it out. The guys have to get stronger in the weight room. There's a lot of variables to it. It is definitely tougher when you're a smaller team, but I think we win the war of attrition a lot, right? It's like a good run game in football. You 3 yards here, 2 yards here. We're just going to keep going at you. And then at some point in the game, right, with our conditioning and our ability to shoot the ball and push the pace, we feel like we can break you down over a 32-minute game.
I love the tactical breakdown of it all. And like I said, when I was watching you guys over the summer, again, it was very apparent how gritty and tough you guys played on both sides of the ball. So I love that. And then going back to the size aspect, yeah, you guys are in an interesting region. I'm really curious to see how you guys deal with players like Terrence Beard at Sandra Day O'Connor, Pinnacle. They have some size inside as well. You got one of the top sophomores in the state, Trevin Davis at Liberty. So a lot of fascinating matchups for you guys there. And I guess just talking about that, tying it all into the region play. Obviously, Canyon View, they're jumping up a conference from 5A to 6A in your first season here. And it's not going to be like previous seasons. Every single night you're playing against the top flight team. Maybe the last couple seasons for Canyon View, it's every week, every couple weeks you're playing against a big opponent. Now it's, you're playing Liberty 2 nights later, you're playing a Pinnacle, then a Sandra Day. There's obviously a lot going on. I think you guys even have like a game with Mesa on the schedule. So kind of just like, endless high level competition. How do you get your guys ready for of competition that they maybe not have been seeing consistently before in the past?
That's a great question, man. That's a great question. And I want to start off by saying those three programs are as well coached, okay, as that makes it so much more difficult. Coach over at Pinnacle, one of those guys I was talking about, been so great, right? Been so supportive, talk to me, become a friend. The guy at Liberty, what a job he's done. Great coach, great guy. Okay. And then of course Sandra Day O'Connor, that guy's had some great teams in the past few years. I remember just in Vegas watching some of those teams, those big teams he had, and just really like Division I talent all over the court. Look, I mean, I think that starts with our scheduling. I knew when we got here, moving up, that we were going to have to make things really tough. At Section 7, Vegas Live, and then of course at the Border League. Right, we're going to the Border League, um, which Coach Jeff Kaufman and Coach Grant Rice run, which is one of the best events in America. And we got to go to those events. We're also going to Harvard Westlake with Coach Rabibo's Thanksgiving Nike event, right? Which is, I mean, you got the best teams in LA, which you might as well put some of those in the best teams in America, right? They're right. They go hand in hand. If you're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in LA, you're one of the top public high schools in America, right? So we're getting that. We're hoping to be able to go to the Jordan Take Flight Challenge the very next weekend with Coach Reggie Morris, who is one of the greatest coaches in America, right, at Redondo Union. We were just talking about who runs at the Team Why Not event. You know, that's how we're going to do it. You can't expect to play these upper echelon programs and that be your first tough test when you get in a conference. So although it would be easier and look better on the resume for us to throw games in there that we believe we're going to win leading up to that. But I really, really leaned into this 2 years ago. And from then, I think, our schedule was as tough as anybody's in the state. We were right there with Gorman and Coronado as far as strength of schedule, right? And we played everybody. And it was there were tough nights, right? Playing these LA teams that, have 3 or 4 Division I commits, big, physical, athletic. But once we got into those big games in the playoffs in the 5A league, I've got a little experience with this. We went into the 5A last year going from 3A to 5A, and we made it to the Final Four in that first year in the 5A, and it was 100% because of who we played early in the year. And when our guys got to that, to the Elite Eight of the 5A in Nevada, we're playing Desert Pines, who's a great program, right? And but we weren't scared. We had played Division I players. We had played great players, and so we were ready for it. And that's, you have to test yourself, and you can't be worried about your records. You can't be worried about yourself. If it's about the kids, you got to get the kids prepared. And it would be so nice. Oh yeah, we'll make a deep run, and then once it gets to the tough times, then we get beat because we're not ready. Well, that's not how we want to do things over here. We want to challenge ourselves every single night.
Yeah, and I love the aggressive scheduling of for any team really of just get as many great teams onto that schedule as possible because it'll prepare you for postseason play. I've seen it benefit a ton of teams. So I love that idea. Kind of just on the players now, and again going back to the summer, now we're at the tail end of it. Obviously you've only been with the team for a couple months, but a lot has changed. It looks like you guys have grown a lot as well as a team. There are a couple of guys that have, I guess are there who are the few of the guys that have really improved the most over the summer live periods, and or anyone that's like really, really impressed you?
Man, it's funny because, and again, I don't want to be like politically correct here because it's like when dude, we were working out this morning, and I looked, my assistant coach, Coach Mark Lindsay, who's one of the best assistant coaches in America. I'm just telling you right now, he's unbelievable. Uh, how he helps me and how he just dives in and he's a Canyon View guy through and through. 2018, he got here right away and he bleeds Canyon View blue, right? And I was talking to him, and it was just like every one of these guys has got better, quicker, more athletic, right? Coach Underwood, our strength guy, has had these guys all summer, and just the amount of work these guys have put in has been unbelievable. Obviously, there's a few guys that are coming back that made impact last year. Obviously guys like PJ Nallen, who is, I think, one of the best players in the entire state. Okay. I think he averaged over 24 points for us at Nevada Live, right, in Section 7. Now, when you think about the teams we played, all right, now people, is he a Division I player? I don't. Here's what I know. I know that he was putting up big numbers against Division I talent, right? And he's physical and he can shoot it and he can do special things. young guys, we like Taylor Owens, right? Who's going to be a sophomore, who is one of the best point guards and will be in this area. Super physical, big point guard, young, right? His best basketball is ahead of him. I think he's going to be one of the better players in the. He'll be one of the best players on the West Coast by his senior year. I believe that. All around, can do everything, can see the floor, can pass. Another young guy, Cam Edwards, right? Who the kid shoots the lights out of the ball. All right, one of the best shooters. His brother, Kingsley Edwards, one of the best shooters. Anthony Stokes, right? A guy that people are not talking enough about. He's 6'4". He's athletic. He's one of the most freaky, twitchy athletes that I've ever coached. And I just wish more guys could have would a chance to see him early on, because he's taken another step in his game right now. And then when you look at, again, I don't want to, but DJ Charles, right? Another guy that's going to be a junior. You talk about a glue guy, a guy that can do everything, that's willing to do anything for the team. All right. Easy guy to coach. KJ Iten Pauly, easy guy to coach, right? Braxton Butler, like I can just keep going, right? Like I'm looking at my roster right now, and it's unbelievable the kind of players that we have, right? And a guy that Jacob Ruiz, who is a guy that broke his nose multiple times he broke his nose in the spring. The first day I get to practice, he breaks his nose the first possession of practice, right? This is a guy that nobody really, maybe not as highly touted, came in the other day and can handle it, can shoot it. I mean, we've got talent up and down this lineup, that I really think we're going to surprise people. And I know that, your rankings and everything, people are starting to see what Canyon View can be. And I do believe we're right where we should be ranking wise. I think we're right there. We're a top 10 team. And we believe that we can make a run at the Final Four of the Open. That's our goal, right? Dream big. We always tell our guys, dream big, and why not us? Why can't we? There's great teams and great coaches, but we believe we can get to that upper echelon of the state.
Yeah, and you guys certainly have the talent, route off a lot of names. My apologies for pronouncing PJ's last name
Oh
Nowlin
no, it's fine.
incorrectly there. But yeah, just a ton of talent. Again, even some like DJ Charles. I remember when I was watching him, I was like, I can't believe what he's doing when he's only 5'8". So just and you just have a lot of players that can get buckets at any times, it feels. Again, that's you guys have a very potent offense. That was one thing I noticed when watching you at both the summer events. And yeah, I mean, I think arguably you guys are a top 10 preseason team heading into the season. And then, yeah, gonna be in a tough region, but that's gonna help you guys. And yeah, I think if you asked me again before this podcast, I'd say, potential to win 6A, could make a run in the Open. So I love
That
the dream big.
that's exactly how I feel about it. And I want to say this: if DJ Charles was 6'2", we'd be having a much different conversation. I mean, I'm just like when you talk about like the natural God given ability to play off the bounce, the smoothness of his game, and then the character is off the. I have so many high character guys, man, that it's so amazing to coach these guys. Like I get it. I can go to work every day and know we're not going to have, I can go every night we have a game. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but these are good dudes who are going to be coached. They're going to allow us to coach them. Right. And that's a culture at Canyon View, right? Started by Coach Hudson. You know, Coach Hudson is one of the best ADs. You look at her resume, it's absolutely off the charts, right? You look at our leadership, with Mr. Nallen, right? Who is a great, deputy superintendent all the way up to the top. This district is special, and it really does breed great culture. At the district meetings when we're meeting the first day, there's a great culture. And that does bleed into the sports programs, right? Everything starts at the top, right? When you have great administration, right, you see a shift in athletics quickly.
Yeah, and like I said, kind of before we jumped on or into the start of the podcast, I kind of told you I actually was working on the broadcast team with Canyon View, what was it 4 or 5 years ago? And even just working with them, even for a year or two, I could tell, how apparent the support and the community aspect was for Canyon View. Everyone was so kind. The administrators were great. Got us what we needed when we were doing broadcasting. And even when I was watching you guys over the summer and posting on Twitter, a very supportive community that cares about Canyon View. There are a lot of high schools out there that, you could easily tell they don't have that support system there, where there's not that true love for their school, whether you're a student or on the administration. So that's what I really like about Canyon View is you guys truly do care about your school and the work you put there. And obviously a lot of athletic programs at Canyon View where you guys excel and do really well. And so, I mean, even when I was working in broadcasting there a few years back, I could tell. I told my parents and something like, give Canyon View a couple years. They're gonna be one of the better programs in the state in regards to all sports.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, Coach, I mean, that's everything I had for you. If there is there anything you wanted to mention or bring up before we close out?
Well, I just first, man. Lastly, I just want to say what you're doing. Okay, it's bringing light to a lot of athletes, a lot of programs, and this is what we need. This is how you build the culture up for us to for everyone to see what's going on here. And I really do root for you and what you're doing. You're a high character guy. You're an honest guy, and I root for this area and the coaches in it and the players in it. And I think this is going to be a special year in high school basketball. There's a lot of parity. Now there's some great teams. I mean, don't get me wrong. You look at these teams. A lot of Division I talent, a lot of maybe potential NBA players in this conference, right? Great coaches. So it's gonna be difficult, but these kind of platforms really help get the names of players and programs out there, man. So we appreciate what you're doing. I know I do.
That you appreciate. And yeah, this is gonna be. I think this has the potential to be one of the better basketball seasons in Arizona the past 10 years. I mean, obviously you have your big favorites to win the Open, like a Sunny Slope Millennium. A lot of good transfers coming in. Bash is really good, but I mean, in terms of like those 4 through 6 slots to get in and make a run at the semifinals of the Open, I mean, I'd argue like slots 4 through 10, it's anyone's game to get in there. So, and there's no one consistent favorite to win either 6A, 5A, or 4A. So I could
Right.
see 4 or 5 different teams in each conference making a run, especially with a lot of transfers and moving around. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Sunny Slip or Millennium will win this year. I think it could be pretty open. We've seen surprises in the past. So yeah, it should be exciting. And we need some people to tune in. We need people to watch the games. We got to grow the games because people need to stop sleeping on Arizona basketball.
Yeah.
It's one of the most talented states in the country.
It is, and there's a lot of hope. Like we wake up every day, we get in there early in the morning, and what's driving us is that belief that hey, maybe it could be us, maybe we can make a run, and that belief will take you a long way. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come on today, man, and just God bless everything you're doing, and I think it's gonna be a great year.
Yeah, appreciate everything and all the kind remarks. And yeah, hoping you guys have a successful season, make a run, and it should be fun to watch you guys play.
Yes, sir.